All right, welcome everyone. Thanks so much for joining us today. It's 12 o'clock and we have a lot of information to share with you today. So we are going to jump right into our webinar today. If I haven't met you before, my name is Laura Weiss. I am a program director here with the Maryland State Arts Council, and I am joined by my fellow program director, Emily Sallenberger. And together we oversee the Independent Artist Awards program along with several other programs. So we are going to walk through today just a presentation about the FY22 Independent Artist Awards, which is focused on the literary arts. I'm going to go through just a couple of kind of informational grounding slides to kick us off, and then we will jump into the real meat of the meeting. But just a couple of housekeeping things. Please mute your device unless you are speaking. We have a lot of people on this call and a lot of people are going to be joining throughout, so just be mindful of that. Also, please do not present your screen. There's a little present screen button at the bottom of your screen. Please be aware of that. I'm sharing the screen today, so don't click that by accident. I would recommend having some paper or some way to take some notes. As I said, there's going to be a lot of information shared, and we will hold the meeting to the established time. So we will end at 1 o'clock. We know that there's probably going to be a lot of questions and answers and things like that throughout, but Emily and I will share our contact information so you can always follow up. If you're not familiar with Google Meet, this is just a little overview of the screen that you are looking at. Some things to be aware of. The microphone is kind of left of center at the bottom, the little microphone icon. You can click that on and off later on if you have a question. There's also a camera to the right of center. It is entirely up to you if you want to be on camera or not today. But do be aware of, in the middle of those two, there is a little leave meeting button that looks like a phone receiver. So don't click that by accident or you'll be kicked out of the meeting. There is a raise hand function towards the right bottom of your screen. When we do get to our questions and answers, we'll use that towards the end of the meeting. There is the ability to turn on captions. If you'd like to use that, you can click on Turn on Captions. And again, there's that screen share button that's left right-hand corner. I'm sorry, the right corner in the bottom. Do avoid hitting that screen share so we don't see your screen by accident. And finally, up at the top, there is a chat that you can open up, so you can feel free to place any questions, comments, anything like that within the chat. We'll be monitoring that throughout. The next few slides I'm going to read out loud for us. The first is our equity and justice statement. The arts celebrate our state's diversity, connect our shared humanity, and transform individuals and communities. The Maryland State Arts Council and its supporting collaborators are committed to advancing and modeling equity, diversity, accessibility, and inclusion in all aspects of our organizations and across communities of our state. MSAC and its grantees are committed to embracing equity and non-discrimination regardless of race, religious creed, color, age, gender expression, sexual orientation, class, language, and/or ability. The vision of the Maryland State Arts Council is to play an essential role ensuring every person has access to the transformative power of the arts. And we do that through our mission, which is to advance the arts in our state by providing leadership that champions creative expression, diverse programming, equitable access, lifelong learning, and the arts as a celebrated contributor to the quality of life for all of the people of Maryland. There are 5 goals that are associated with our current strategic plan, and those 5 goals are to increase participation, provide intentional support, build capacity, leverage connections, and bolster Maryland arts. And finally, we begin all of our meetings at the Maryland State Arts Council with what we call our creative meeting actions. And we ask you to embrace these ideas as we go through our meeting for the next hour. And that is to celebrate being in the space with other creative people, engage with everyone's presence as a gift, acknowledge that together we know a lot, enter the conversation with curiosity and inquiry, share your idea and trust that it will be heard. Use I statements. Focus your language on the task at hand. Hold one another accountable with care. Apply yes and, I hear your idea and I'm going to add to it. And balance speaking and listening. And we encourage avoiding the use of pronouns in public meetings. Please introduce yourself by name when speaking and refer to each other by name during the meeting. And just a couple more informational slides. MSAC has a ton of professional development that we offer. There's various sessions, including our Envision series, which Coffee with Ken is a part of. If you've ever joined us on Tuesday mornings, these are wonderful conversations with our executive director. They're open. Everyone is welcome to join those at any time. We also have Creative Conversations, which are discipline-specific gatherings at various points in the year. We hold networking sessions and regional art summits in the fall every year. And very soon, actually, at the very beginning of June, we have our 2021 Maryland Art Summit, which will be held virtually on June 3rd and June 4th. So if you haven't registered for that, please consider doing so. There's some really wonderful sessions that will take place. And as you can see, there's tons of stuff going on. Almost 10,000 participants from March of last year through April of this year have attended almost 250 virtual professional development offerings. And one final call out before we get started is that we are often looking for panelists. Panelists are really, it's a great way to be involved in the grant making process. We actually, this week, will have a call go out for the Independent Artist Awards to join us as a panelist. So I hope that you might consider doing that. You'll be trained and you'll have support through the staff, which will be me and Emily in the Independent Artist Awards. You'll review and score applications in connection to a rubric, and then you would attend the public panel meetings. So that's definitely something to keep out for, and we hope that you might consider that. All right, today we are looking at the IAA program. We're going to really go through the guidelines, piece by piece, so that you really understand the application process, the scoring, the rubric, all of those pieces that go into it. We'll take a look at the application itself and the various stipulations around work samples, and we'll also take a look at our grants portal called Smart Simple. And at the end, we will have some time for questions and answers. And Emily, I am going to hand it over to you.
Great, thanks Laura, and welcome everybody. Good to have you here this afternoon. I'm just going to run through some slides that are specifically about the Independent Artist Award program itself. So the Independent Artist Award recognizes achievement by Maryland artists making work independently of an organization or institution. There are two types of awards, really. There's regional awards, which are based on the county and region that you reside in. And those awards are at the $2,000 and $10,000 level. Then those that receive the $10,000 awards are then pooled together for consideration for a $15,000 state award. And that goes to up to 2 folks each year for that $15,000 for a total of $25,000. Additionally, the program used to be administered by the Mid-Atlantic Arts Foundation, which is our regional arts organization for the state and surrounding counties. In 2020, we made a shift from Mid-Atlantic to the Maryland State Arts Council, fully administering the program from point A to point B from the beginning to the end. So this is actually our 3rd year of administering the Independent Artist Awards fully from the State Arts Council. 2020 was the first year with the with performing arts, excuse me. Last year, which we just finished up, was for visual and media arts. So now we're going to our 3rd year for the literary arts. Okay. And as you can see, there's a 3-year cycle. So one of those shifts from the Mid-Atlantic version to fully at the State Arts Council is we shifted from a sub-discipline category. So if you've applied to this program in the past, you might have found yourself in a certain literary subcategory, whereas in now moving forward, we have 3 primary categories. So just looking at the literary arts as a general form for each year, and then every 3 years we'll shift literary arts to different performing and or visual media. So you can see we're in FY22 for literary arts, going into performing arts in FY23, visual and media for FY24. And again, applicants can only apply in the primary category, and they're reviewed by a panel for consideration. And as Laura mentioned, we have our open panelist call going out very soon, and applications are due on July 1st, 2021 in our Smart Simple system, and we'll get to that a little bit later. Okay, and some helpful hints before you move forward into your application. We're looking at only completed work samples for the Independent Artist Award. So if you have things that are works in progress, those will not be considered and ineligible in terms of a work sample. So really think about complete work samples for this particular program. And again, there's some helpful hints here that in progress and project proposals will not be considered. And we consider complete work being that it's ready for the public for presentation. And unlike creativity grants, which is kind of our project grant program looking towards future projects and proposals and activities, really the Independent Artist Award is designed for completed works. So when you're looking at your application, we're going to get to this. It's really about the work samples that are complete and a creative process statement rather than kind of what you're planning to do with the funding. And we'll go to more details as we go along here. In terms of eligibility, you must be a Maryland resident, 18 years of age or older. If you're planning to apply with a collaborative group, that's completely fine. We're looking for the collaborative group members, at least 50% of them to be Maryland residents. And you do have to be out of school, so we cannot accept applications if you're in high school, undergraduate, or any kind of graduate program in any of the artistic disciplines. And we do have full eligibility details within the guidelines, and we can share those in the chat too. They're right on our website, very easily accessible through that, and it's in a PDF form, so we can certainly share that. Okay, and here are some examples that of disciplines that would fall under the literary arts category. They're not limited to just these, but these are some of the common ones that we find. So fiction, nonfiction, poetry, scripts and screenplays, children's literature, graphic literature. And if there's any question about the type of work that you're planning to submit under the literary category, you can contact Laura or myself at any time, and we can walk through any questions that you might have. And it looks like Laura just dropped the guidelines in the chat box as well, if anybody wants to pick up that link there. Okay, so I mentioned the types of awards kind of a few slides back, but here's a little bit more detail. So the $2,000 regional award is looking at awards based in your region to encourage the pursuit of promising work by an individual artist or collaborative group. And then for the $10,000 award, they're looking at notable artistic achievement by an individual artist or collaborative group. And we'll get into this a little bit further here, but they are the panel that would be reviewing your work, and they're looking at a review criteria or a rubric to score. So based on the scoring and what the panelists, their scores are, they would be determining the level of either $2,000 or $10,000 award at that regional group. And as mentioned, the $10,000 award winners are then pooled together to be considered for a $15,000 state award. And that's up to 2 artists and or collaborative groups that are recognized at that outstanding artistic achievement each year. So really those 2 artists and or collaborative groups that receive $15,000 are actually receiving $25,000 because they're getting that $10,000 regional award plus the $15,000. And there's a note here too that an artist, if you want to go back, Laura, just real quick, thanks. An artist may receive up to 3 $2,000 regional awards, 2 $10,000 regional awards, and 1 state award in their lifetime. So just be mindful of that. If you've received an award in the past, that's amazing. You can apply again, but just note that there is a bit of a limit there to the number of awards at each level. Okay, and then I'm going to pass it off to Laura here in a second, but the application that she's going to go through is fairly simple. Once you get into Smart Simple, which is our online grants platform, it includes your contact information and collaborative information if you're applying as a collaborative group. A creative process statement, which is just 100 words, which can be good and a bad thing, and up to 8 work samples with the opportunity for technical information and description for each of those work samples. And we'll get into what those details look like. And I think I'm passing it to you, Laura.
Great, thank you so much, Emily. And I just wanted to note, I did not say this at the beginning, but we are recording today's session. So just be aware it is being recorded. That's just for informational purposes, so we can put it on the website for anyone who couldn't join today. But I just wanted to say that out loud, that we're doing that. So to continue on then with what we're looking for within the application itself, that first part is the creative process statement. That statement is limited to 100 words, so it is a concise statement, but the statement should convey to the panel information that further informs any additional processes, inspiration, intention, philosophy, evolution of style, current direction of the artist's work that is being submitted for review. So that's a lot of information to consider, but just kind of let that simmer for a moment to look at what we are looking for within that creative process statement. And then that statement is then connected to your work samples. So the applicants may provide up to 8 work samples in whichever file type, meaning audio, image, video, or PDF, or combination of file types that they feel best showcases their work. And there is also within each work sample, there is a section for technical information that you can provide for each work sample. That would include when the year of when the work sample was created or recorded. And just a little bit more information about, what's within the work sample. So those are the stipulations. You have up to 8 work samples. We're often asked, do you have to use 8 work samples? You do not. It is up to you and how many you feel best demonstrates what you are trying to convey in your application. But you have up to 8 work samples that you can include in any combination of those different types of files. And then also breaking that down just a little bit more, really all file types and sizes will be accepted through the Smart Simple platform. If you go into the guidelines on pages 9 and 10, there is some recommended file types that just, kind of makes things easier within the Smart Simple platform, but all file types can be accepted. A couple of things to note, though, as you are working through those work samples, is that the total combined length of any audio and video files may not exceed 10 minutes per application. So you can have multiple files of varying lengths, but when you add them all together, it can only be 10 minutes total of audio and video. Similarly, the total combined length of manuscripts and compositions that are submitted may not exceed 20 pages per application. So again, any kind of, you can have as many as you'd like, up to the 8 total, but it cannot exceed 20 pages total. So you're, in some cases, you're going to be looking at excerpts. It might not be the entire piece, but you're looking at the excerpt that you want the panel to look at. And again, pages 9 and 10 of the guidelines really break this down further in terms of best file types and some specific information on naming mechanisms and such. just reiterating, I think we've said it once before, we'll probably say it another 50 times throughout the presentation, but the application is open now and the deadline is Thursday, July 1st at 5:00 p.m. And that 5:00 p.m. is an important thing to note. So make sure you highlight that on your calendar, circle it, put it in red, whatever works for you. But applications received after the deadline will not be accepted. And just to kind of walk you through now the process in which your application will go through. So once you submit that application by the deadline, by 5:00 on Thursday, July 1st, all of the applications that are received will undergo what we call an eligibility check that will happen following the deadline. So that means that Emily and myself and some others on staff will go through your application to check that everything is eligible, that everything is complete. That will occur primarily in July. So, just kind of so you know the process in which your application is going. That's the first stop, is the eligibility and completeness check to make sure everything is good to go. From there, your application begins what we call round 1 of the application review process. So there's going to be a panel that is established and they review the applications. Prior to the regional panel meetings that will happen later in the fall, all applications that are considered eligible will first be reviewed by panelists on their own time during the round 1 scoring rubric. From there, average panel scores are determined, and from those averages, we determine who will advance forward to round 2, which is the panel meeting itself. So an application can receive a total of 15 points per panelist in this round 1. And this is an important one to take a look at, and we will share these slides afterwards, but if it's helpful for you to take a screenshot or anything like that, feel free to. This is the round 1 rubric. So these are the 3 points that applications will be scored on by panelists. An excellent to outstanding score of 15 total points will include the following. It will include clear evidence of outstanding achievement in presenting promising and/or engaging work. So that is worth up to 5 points. It will include excellent communication of creative process. That's looking at that creative process statement that we talked about earlier. That's another 5 points. And finally, the described creative process or vision are very clearly evident in the work samples provided. So that's looking at the two together and seeing that there is evidence of the creative process or vision clearly evident within the work samples that are shared. And that's another 5 points. So that's your total 15 points for that first rubric. So after that scoring occurs, those applications that score high enough to move on to round 2 will move on to the round 2 of reviews, which takes place at the regional panel meetings. Regional panel meetings will occur in late November and early December. There are 3 of them total that are scheduled, and those dates will be published onto the website as we get closer to that point. Very similarly, in round 2, an application can receive a total of 15 points per panelist in round 2, and this would happen at the panel meeting itself. That's when the scoring occurs. So this rubric is slightly different. It's looking at a couple of different points. And again, if taking a screenshot or something like that is helpful here, these are also all outlined in the guidelines as well. But the round 2 rubric, an excellent to outstanding score of 15 total points will include the following 3 points. Work samples provide evocative experiences and heightened sensations based on the intention. That's 5 points. The work samples communicate collective meaning that goes beyond the artist's perspective and experience. That's another 5 points. And finally, there is a strong connection between the concept statement and the work samples, demonstrating contemporary perspectives, which include remaining open, fluid, transparent, subject to influence, and able to hold contradiction. And again, all of these are in the guidelines, so you can take a look at them a little bit further at a later point. So once all of those scorings happen, like Emily was saying, there is also a state panel. So those applicants that are recommended after they go through rounds 1 and round 2 for a $10,000 regional award will move forward to the state panel meeting, which will happen in January. And those are considered for that additional $15,000 state award, which is awarded to up to 2 artists or collaborative groups. For the state panel, we're using the same rubrics. So panelists will use the 2 rubrics from rounds 1 and round 2 to guide the discussion of each application for that state panel meeting. And panelists will make funding recommendations based on that panel discussion. And those with a majority of recommendations will be recommended then for the additional state awards. And the panel meetings, like I said, that information will be posted to the website shortly. It'll be available for you. In accordance with Maryland's Open Meetings Act, the IAA panel meetings are open for the public to join for observation only. Artists are certainly encouraged to attend and hear the panel's comments about the applications. So what that means is when the time comes for those meetings, you are able to join in. We don't know at this point whether they will be virtual or in person, but either way, you have the ability to join on, whether that's logging in or calling in. You're able to listen to the meeting, so that way you can hear the conversation around your application or others' applications. And finally, just to kind of complete the whole cycle, so you know where we're at. So you've applied by July 1st, and then we're looking all the way forward to next spring. That's when the notification of awards happens. Applicants will be notified of award decisions in writing no later than March 1st, 2022. And we're often asked, will I find out whether I get an award or not? The answer is yes. We do notify all applicants, no matter if they were to receive an award or not. So you're not left hanging there. All right, that's a lot of information on the application, but I am going to hand it over to Emily to walk through Smart Simple and show you some screenshots there.
Great, thanks, Laura. And I'm seeing that there's some questions in the chat, and just to be aware, we'll hold off to the end and get to some other questions. So just didn't want you guys to think that we were ignoring you in the chat box there. So to move forward, as mentioned, the applications will be submitted through Smart Simple, which is our online grant platform. If you've not been on the platform before, you could just go to marylandarts.smartsimple.com. There's also a link on our website, so you can have easy access to Smart Simple as well if you lose it here in the slide deck. So if you have not registered before, you're going to click the blue register button or just log in as you would in the past. Looks like Laura dropped the link in the chat box as well if anybody wants to pick that up. So you're either going to hit either blue button here on the landing page. If you're registering for the first time, you're going to register as an independent artist. There's going to then be a form that you fill out. You want to fill everything out in completion and then hit submit. At that time, then you're in the system, you'll have a password, and then you'll be able to log in with your email, which is your username, and then the password. And then once you're logged in, you're going to come to a dashboard, which is going to have some of these sub headers here. So when you get to the top, it's going to say My Applications, and on the left side, it's going to have funding opportunities and a number. And that's associated with the number of grant applications that are currently open to you as an independent artist. So once you click, it probably says 8 right now, because I think that's probably the amount of opportunities. Once you click that number 8 above funding opportunities, it's going to bring you to a listing. And within that list, it should say Independent Artist Award, and you're going to click the Apply Now button, which also should be blue. So throughout Smart Simple, you'll notice that anything that is blue is usually something that you can click on or actionable. And then that will open up your application when you click Apply Now to the Independent Artist Award. And from here, it's going to bring you to the application itself. So you'll see kind of towards the top middle where it says contact information, application details, work samples, attachments, electronic signatures. Those are different tabs of the application itself, and you can kind of toggle with your mouse between all of those. But prior to doing that and entering information, you're going to want to hit Save Draft, which is another blue button towards the bottom. By clicking that, it's going to give you full access to the application, and it's also going to save that draft. So anytime, even if you leave the screen after you click Save Draft, you're going to have it within your dashboard to come back to at any point. So the great thing about our applications are you can work on them for a little bit, continue to hit save throughout your work, and then come back to it another time. So you don't have to do everything all at once unless you're ready to do so. And that's it for Smart Simple. It is pretty simple, and Laura and I are here to help throughout that process and lend any support when it comes to technical assistance, along with the application itself for the Independent Artist Award. So I think we can probably open it up to questions, and I just wanted to, I'll voice a couple here. Laura, feel free to jump in. There's a couple questions, and you actually probably know this better than I do. If in terms of work samples, published versus unpublished work samples are acceptable. As long as they're completed, correct, Laura? Then they're acceptable, and they can be excerpts. It's really just making sure that they're completed, and we leave that to you as determining if your work is complete or not. But it doesn't necessarily need to be published, correct, Laura?
Yes, I agree with that. And just to kind of clarify what we mean by looking at completed works, it's just that we are looking we're looking at that completed body of work. So it's not looking forward to something that you're hoping to work on, or something that is down the road that you want to use the grant funds for. It's really looking for that completed body of work, so that it's like Emily said, it's up to you to determine whether that's a completed piece, but the publishing does not indicate whether it would be completed or not. So published or unpublished is fine. Let's see, I do see there are a bunch of questions, and I might have seen some hands. Timothy Young, a question?
Yeah, hi.
Hi.
I'm a children's book author, illustrator. And so my work is obviously, it's literary, but it's also visual. Is that something, and part of the writing process is in the visuals that I create. Is that something that is considered when they look at my work, or is it just the word part?
For this year, since we're in the literary year, it's really looking at the written portion of it. I don't know how your illustrator, you said that there are kind of words that are, a part of the illustration. So I'm not sure, depending on how.
Part of the storytelling is in.
Sure.
Yeah, part of the storytelling is in the visual as much as in the words.
Yeah. This is really, it's looking more at the actual written portions of it. I think the visual, the illustrations and such could fall potentially, I don't know, Emily, what you think, but into the visual media year. And certainly, Timothy, we could look at it on a one-on-one basis to help determine how that looks for you in particular. But this is really looking at the written portions this year as opposed to visual aspects. But certainly email us and we can look at it more closely.
Great, thank you.
Yeah. Looks like there's a question from Jane Elkin. Oh, Jane left. Maybe not. Hopefully she'll come back. Another question from Sherry. or Cherry? I'm not sure. Amor?
It looks like she's left the meeting, so I'm not sure how her hand is still up, but
Okay.
if she comes back, we can ask.
That works.
I'm here. I accidentally logged out and
Oh,
found my way back to you.
welcome back. I'm glad you found your way.
My question was, how many regional awards do they give out on the lower level before they bump up? Well, how many $2,000 awards, how many $10,000 awards before they go to the state level?
That's an excellent question, Jane. We actually don't go into it with a set amount. It's, you know, there is a budget, and we go with it from there. So if there's recommendations for a whole bunch of $10,000 awards and two $2,000 awards that meets within the budget, that's great. Or vice versa, a whole bunch of 2,000 and one 10,000. That's great too. So that we actually don't go into it saying, you know, there's 5 of this and 5 of that. It's just dependent on how it breaks down and what the panelists feel. Great. Let's see, we have Heather McDonald.
Hi, is your recommendation in putting together, like if you're going to use samples from several works, is to actually craft like a 20-page new document that sort of takes you through those works in its own journey or sample, rather than submitting like 3 excerpts, put it into one kind of, you know, one sample that has maybe a thematic. I'm just wondering the best way, like if you're going to use samples from several works, in your experience, what is the most, I don't know, well received, I guess?
That's a great question. And Laura, I can handle this one too. That's really good, because I think sometimes it's easier to put everything into one document and hit send and for everybody to review. But actually for our system, for each work sample, or each piece that you want to put in has the opportunity for additional technical information, along with a title and the year it was created. So the recommendation would actually be that, if you're planning to submit all 8 work samples, that's how many you have, up to that amount to submit them separately. So that way you have the opportunity to put some additional information, and that way the panelists can go through each work sample if they're discussing it at the panel meeting, for example, and they say, well, look at this third sample at this particular point. It's actually easier to navigate that way. And again, provides you the opportunity for additional clarification and information in the technical support.
Okay, thank you. That's very helpful.
And I think I would also, just to piggyback just a little bit, when you were saying, Heather, about like, thematically or putting things together, making it kind of quote unquote make sense, for like flow purposes. I think that's going back to your creative process statement. And that's looking at, discussing that through that 100 words, how that relates to those various samples, so that it's not, like you said, not just kind of random samples, but, that they make sense as related to the creative process statement.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. Let's see, we have Seema.
Hi there. Thanks for doing this. On the page where you had it laid out between the 2,000 and the 10,000, next to the $2,000 award, it talks about art that shows promise, which suggests that would not be a complete work, and I'm just a little confused about that, and kind of related what the relationship is between like career level and maybe eligibility or likelihood of an award.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. There's no, in terms of, where you're at in your career, there's no eligibility specifications other than you can't be a student. So, you can be a brand new writer or a very seasoned writer. Let me flip back here real quick to those levels, if I can find it real quick. There we go. Yeah, so I mean, I think it's looking just at the difference of the notable artistic achievement, you know, in that, you know, that's a I don't want to say higher level because that's not what I mean, but it's that you have a certain amount of achievement, I think, with the work, as opposed to something that the $2,000 is encouraging more work from that artist. So, you know, it might be that that artist is developing perhaps, you know, or it's just encouraging that we want to see more out of that artist. Emily, I don't know if you have anything just in relationship to this past year with the visual year that you can add in there.
Yeah, and I would just add that it's really for the panelists to make that decision in their discussion as well, that, you know, when they bring light to a particular application at the panelists, that sorry about the sirens. Yeah, I would just, yes, and that it's really the panelists who'd be looking at basically that promising work that they see promise within the work samples, and that's really does not necessarily connect to the amount of years you've been writing or your career or accolades necessarily.
Right.
So the achievement, sorry to just to follow on, by artistic achievement, because there's pursuit in the regional award, which suggests that it's not finished. And then the artistic achievement is just like from the subjective view of the panelists, like this is awesome. Okay, got it, thank you.
Yeah.
And I think too, Seema, it's also, you know, it's looking at the artist. So, you know, obviously you're going to look at their work samples, but it's looking at the promise of the artist. So not necessarily saying that the work sample has promise because it has been completed, like you said. So it's looking at that promise from the artist and their work, and the outstanding achievement from the artist. I hope that helps to clarify, but we can certainly, if you have questions, we can certainly talk. Feel free to email us.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, of course. Let's see who's next here. Kadu?
You're on mute, Kadu. There you go. Unfortunately, I can't hear her. Yeah. I don't think your mic is connected.
Are you talking to me,
There we go, yes.
Lolita?
Oh,
That's me.
no, I'm sorry, we were talking to Kadu. It looks like you're not muted, but try to reconnect your microphone, or feel free to put your information in the chat.
I did put my information in the chat. I just wanted an answer. I think, should I redo that?
We can hear you, Lolita. Go ahead.
All I want to know, thank you. What I want to know is it okay to submit something with half of it, maybe fiction and poetry? Can we do two genres in one application?
Absolutely. Yes. Yes, you can definitely do that. There is a portion in the application itself, once you're in Smart Simple, that asks you to identify your sub-discipline. And that is in no means to, you know, put you into a box or anything like that. That is simply to help us to assign panelists to you that would best complement the type of writing that you do. So I would say just select whichever one you feel most strongly connects to your work, or that's the majority of your work. But the sub-disciplines doesn't have any effect on the scoring. The scoring is the same throughout. But yes, please, you can have any combination that you'd like.
So it's okay to do a bunch of, say, stories in the beginning and then some poetry?
Absolutely. Yep. My recommendation would just be to, you know, talk about that within your creative process, you know, and how that's a part of your work and your process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great.
Great. That's and one other question. It doesn't have to be half and half. It can be weighted in one genre and less in one, and that's okay, right?
Absolutely. However, it works into your own personal your work and your portfolio and how that, you know, how you want to express that.
Yeah.
Any combination that works for you.
Thank you so much, Laura. I get it.
You're welcome.
I'll just add to that too, because I think there was a couple of questions in the chat about the subdisciplines. So just kind of backing up that literary arts is going to be looked at as a whole. We're going to have a multidiscipline panel reviewing the works that are submitted, but multidiscipline in the terms of literary arts multidiscipline subcategories. So we'll have representation across as many genres as possible within the literary arts, along with geographically across the state and as diverse as we possibly can get the panel to ensure that there's multiple people reviewing each application. So just wanted to note that based on a couple of questions in the chat, that it's not going to be divided up by subdiscipline in terms of panel review. It's a full one panel looking at every application.
And I do see there are a ton of questions in the chat. I'm sorry, we're trying to get through. We're trying to multitask between the hands up and the chat. Just to very quickly address a couple that I see, and if we don't get to you, please feel free to email us and we can make sure one-on-one that we answer your questions. There was a question about audio or video samples to support literary review. I would suspect, this is just purely a guess, we have not done a literary year yet through the IAs. I would suspect that a lot are going to be PDFs, you know, because of the written nature of it. I suppose there could be performances of a poem or a reading or something to that effect. It's not scored on the performance though. Just know that we're looking at the written word. So that might be like a complimentary kind of thing, but I would suspect that the vast majority are probably PDFs or the like when it comes to the written literary categories. There was a question to clarify up to 8 work samples, but no more than 20 pages total. That is correct. So you can have up to 8 work samples and any combination to get you up to 20 pages total. It does not have to be 8 work samples and it does not have to be 20 pages. That's just the maximum amount for those two. I think a lot of these have been addressed. I'm going to flip back over to some hands up, but we'll scan through the chat as well as we try to get through everybody. Connie Harold.
Okay, there we are. I wanted to know, in the work sample, do you identify yourself? Do you have your name on it?
That's a great question, Connie. That's a really good question. So in the past, there was anonymity, so removing your name or any kind of likeness or anything like that from your work samples. That is no longer a requirement, so you do not need to remove your name or identifying traits or anything like that. You can have your name.
Great, that's a big difference.
It is. It's a big difference.
Okay, that was it. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Connie. Shirley Brewer. Is Shirley with us? I'm not sure we're hearing you, Shirley, unfortunately.
I'm sorry, I was having a little trouble unmuting myself.
No problem.
Hi, everyone. Hi, I see a lot of familiar people here. Okay, so I think you probably already answered my question, but I'm going to state it again because in the old days when the Mid-Atlantic Arts did all this and you were a poet, you just submitted your poems. That was it because it's literary. So now I think I'm a little overwhelmed by this audio, image, video because I'm a great writer, but I'm not a tech person at all. So I'm thinking, oh, if I have a video of me reading, is this going to be extra points? You know what I'm saying? So is it okay for me as a poet with my work samples to just submit my poems? That's okay, right? I mean, I think that's what I'm hearing, but I just wanted you, Laura, or Emily, to verify.
Yes, absolutely. Like I said, the performance or anything like that is seen if there was to be a video or audio sample. The performance quality is not a part of this this particular year. That could be maybe under a performance year, but not for the literary year. So we're looking at the literary nature, so the written performance or the written aspects of it. So submitting your poetry, 100% okay.
So why do they have that then for the literary year? Why do they have audio, video, and image? What is an image? A photograph? I mean, why do they have it in there? Because I think it's a little, like if you have I don't know. Can you give examples of other than a performance? I understand a video, but like what would an image be under the list? Because it's under work samples. It's got video, image. What would an image be? An example of an image.
Honestly, Shirley, I'm not sure if there would be all that many. We keep the same specifications for all years because it needs to be
okay.
all years.
So that's the same specifications regardless of if it's
So I mean,
okay.
I'm sure
that clarifies it. Now I'm relaxed. Now I'm comfortable.
Yeah,
okay.
I'm sure there could be a creative use of some sort that somebody could figure out. But
I mean, if I put a picture of myself with Amanda Gorman, you know, that's gonna shoot me right to the top of the list right now. Sorry.
Right. We are just looking at the written performance. So as much as, it would be, a headshot or something like that is probably not really going to help in this particular circumstance, unless there was some direct connection to your creative statement or something like that. But I can't think of many examples of that. But yeah, I think my guess, like I said, this is our first year with literary arts. My guess is that the vast majority will be PDFs and the like, so that way we see the written, the text, and the work. Is that your guess too, Emily? I'm assuming so.
Absolutely. Unless you are, I think there was the children's author that if you had a beautiful visual to go along with your written words that you would prefer to have in an image format rather than a PDF, that would be a good example. But otherwise, like Laura said, it's really utilizing the work, the file type that best suits your work sample. And that would be our recommendation.
Yeah. And of course, I know we sound a bit like a broken record, but if you have questions or you're going, oh, I'm just not sure, could this be, is it eligible, would this help? Any of that, you can feel free to reach out to myself and to Emily, and we can say that wouldn't be scored, or that's not necessary, or that might help. So feel free, we can look at that on a one-on-one basis. But those are just all of the various options that you have. Let's see. There's some hands that are still up from old. I don't know if they're old questions or new questions, so I'm sorry if I've missed something. But I'm going to go to Douglas Scott Hessler. Hello.
Hi there, everyone. Hi, Laura. It's more of a clarification. So I think I've learned something today. It's actually completed works, not used for future works, number one, right? And then the second part of my clarification is, so if you want to submit like 2 screenplays, that's my track record. And each screenplay is 120 pages, roughly, right? So I'm just going to be able to submit like a 10-page excerpt from each screenplay.
Exactly right.
Equal 20 pages.
Yep, you would pick whatever you deemed was the best, or the pieces that you could connect your creative process statement to the most, the ones that you thought showed off your work the best, so that you got to the 20 pages.
So then they have no clue where that story is going from the 10-page excerpt, number one. Is there a way to indicate that, or?
Meaning just the entirety of the story, or like a summary or something like that?
Right, right.
I'm trying to think if that would be a necessary element for this particular thing. It might not be that, I think that you're really looking at that particular sample, whatever, the 10 pages or 12 pages or whatever you decide, and connecting that with your creative process statement to show what that process is and what you're trying to communicate. There is some space in the technical information that you might be able to just give like a very brief, one sentence or something like that, but it wouldn't be like a huge summary. And again, I'm not entirely sure, Emily, I'm not sure your feelings on this, but I'm not entirely sure if it's necessary in this context for them to necessarily know the conclusion of the story or what have you. But certainly we can look at that and I can help you determine, where that goes. But it's really looking at that kind of snippet. It's giving kind of just the highlight or the piece that you feel most connects to your statement,
Right.
wherever that might be. Yeah.
Okay. And then lastly, is there a place in that application that says something about your track record from the past of produced screenplays?
There's a biography section, but it is not scored. It is not part of the rubric. That is strictly for, if you are awarded, it's for marketing purposes. So that way we have information for press releases and such.
Right.
This particular program, it's really, it's not looking at a resume or a CV or any kind of, that kind of thing. I mean, you can include some of that potentially in your creative process statement, depending on how that might have influenced you or, been a part of your process. But in terms of like a resume or something, that's not a part of the application.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Oh, sorry, Emily, go ahead.
I was just going to add on, there's a couple of questions about that I think lend itself to technical and what to include. There was, I think Yvonne said something about being a co-writer on a work, and you can absolutely include work samples if you have a co-writer with you. Just indicate within that technical information, just as Douglas had mentioned, if there's something that we need to know that's specifically your role within a work sample, that's going to be really important if you're submitting collaborative works, or if you are a co-writer or collaborative with somebody else, to really indicate your role within that work sample.
Thanks so much for that, Emily. It's 12:58, so I'm going to take one more question vocally. There might be a few more in the chat, and then of course offline we can connect with you on a one-on-one basis to make sure that all of your questions are answered. The next in the line is Nelson.
Hi, thanks for doing this again. Very helpful. I'm also someone who's submitted in the past, so screenwriter, and you just submit a sample and that's it. So some of these questions have been answered. Super quick one, and then one or two super fast ones. Is there a creative process statement per sample? Is that how I understood it?
Just one for the application. So
the application, okay.
Yes, you have that one creative process statement that's relating to the various work samples that you share. So connecting it to that body of work.
Okay, and I got a sense from the previous question from, I think, Douglas, that you can try to sort of put into context, like if you have a feature script, but you're going to submit just this 10-minute excerpt from it, you can try to kind of put that into a little bit of the context of where this scene fits in a larger story. Is that something you can do? Just kind of clarifying that.
Yeah, I think that could certainly fit either in the creative process statement, or like Emily was saying, within the technical section for the work sample. So if it's, if you're a playwright and it's Act 1, Scene 4, and you want to give that context a little bit of where we're at, that would definitely be an example within the technical information.
Yeah, so you could say this is like page 40 through 50 of a 120-page script or something.
Exactly, just to give a little bit of guidance in terms of this is the climax of the piece, or maybe this is more the character development portion or something like that.
Gotcha. And super quick one, this is like a yes or no. If you have like an independent film where you wrote the script and you did it all yourself, would that be an example of where you submit video where you're really just looking at like the dialogue in a scene, for example, like a 2-minute scene or something like that? Is that an example whereas in the literary arts you submit, like a video clip?
I think that's something that it could be potentially, yes. And again, we can look at that, offline and how that looks. It's how I think of it is kind of like within like the Oscars or the Emmys or something like that. When you see like the, on the awards, you see like the 30-second
little snippet,
little snippet, and you're not looking at the acting or the production values, but it's the writing of it, for the screenplay award or something like that. That's sort of how I'm thinking of it. It's about the written word, so not looking at the production values or something.
Okay, but certainly a possibility. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll let you with that. I've got other ones, but I'll email you guys. I don't want to tie up more time. So thank you.
Sounds good. Well, we appreciate it. And thank you, everyone. I'm sorry that it's 101 already and we did not get to every single question, but I certainly hope that this helped to give a bit of a sense of, what the application looks like and what the process is. Let me just move this forward real quick. So you have our email addresses. I'm sure Emily has put them in the chat as well. But you can feel free to reach out to us at any time. As you can see, Emily and I are both at home, so email is really the best way to be in touch as we do not have our office phones next to us. But we are more than happy to either chat via email or we can set up a meeting to talk further about your application. And we are here to help the entire way. So if you have any questions at all, feel free to reach out. And we're really excited for this process. We're so excited to see the applications come in. Emily, anything else before we wrap up?
Yeah, just a couple of things. Thanks, Laura, and thanks everybody for joining. These are really excellent questions. I did drop a document called Aesthetic Perspectives in the chat because there was a couple of questions we didn't get to in terms of some of the rubrics and what they mean in terms of contemporary perspectives and openness and fluidity and all of those types of things. All of that is pulled from this aesthetics perspective document as a reference point. So it would just advise to take a quick peek at that. And again, we can answer any questions and walk through your application with you one-on-one. And thanks.
Great. Thank you so much, Emily. And thank you, everyone, for spending your lunch hour with us. I hope you learned something. And please feel free to reach out. And we're excited to see your applications. All right. Thank you, everybody.